Hey guys, it's Matt. Today we're going to finish the What the Bleep Do We Know book, do part 2. I think we only got about a third of the way through, but I think we'll finish today. This book tries to bridge, the relationship between consciousness and reality, or physical reality. A lot of it is quantum physics. Came out in 2003 or 2004. You may remember seeing it as a PBS movie, or the book came after the movie. The movie was actually bigger. I wanted to show you this, the reason for the video this morning. This is the this is the elephant. Hi, Zara. This is the elephant that Pam brought me in the hospital, and it's the one-eye elephant. And I know, let's just get it out of the way. Matt, how easy would it have been for you to rip the one eye out to make this believe what you want? This, this is what Pam presented me. I said, Pam, did you notice the little elephant you bought had one eye? No, I didn't notice that. I would have picked another one, she said. So this is very, very, this will always be with me. I mean, Pam was the only one to visit me in the hospital. She brought me this, and this is the first thing I noticed. Anyway, guys, this is we're going to do this in a few weeks. More myths and legends. This book should be called Humpty Dumptys and Stuffed Lenins, not myths and legends. Finnish mythology, Ragnarok, mythology from all over Africa and the Middle East. Gilgamesh is in here. Gilgamesh, things like that. I mean, just stories that have no business being carried down thousands of years. Gilgamesh, oh wow, such an incredible story. Fought Enkidu, the wild man. It's even quoted or cited in Star Trek. It's not a great story. Again, the deal with the, forget myths and legends, the deal with the Humpty Dumptys and Stuffed Lenins is the story, or whatever's being carried through time, is being carried through time artificially, and wouldn't have made it even a few years into the future, let alone thousands of years. I mean, for example, again, the story of Gilgamesh is just not that good. It's not that good. There's nothing to it. So I understand the creation legend that's in here, the Hopi Indian or the Sioux creation legend. I mean, I understand why that would be carried through time through the traditions of their people. But some of these stories about the great heroes, I mean, even Hercules, that's at the top of the list. It's not that good. So anyway, guys, let's dive into part 2 of What the Bleep Do We Know. Okay, guys, let's continue with part 2 of this book that's in front of me, What the Bleep Do We Know? But it was a much bigger movie released in 2004 or so. PBS, probably BBC, starring Marlee Matlin, who was the first deaf Miss America. The movie was shown a bunch between 2004 and 2006. You may remember seeing it. It tries to reconcile the impact of consciousness on reality itself, mostly using the concepts of quantum physics. It was way ahead of its time. I mean, we're talking about the double slit experiment today, and double slit eraser and retrocausality. We've been talking about that for 10 years. But how many of us were talking about that stuff in 2004, when this book started to be written, 2001, 2002? Maybe it was the big event in September that inspired them without them even knowing. I mean, they were ahead of their time, and we give them credit for that. But as we analyze this, we are basically in a superior position in terms of understanding how this reality works, because reality has given itself away to us. Therefore, it sounds arrogant. It sounds like I'm a real jerk or something, but we're kind of analyzing it to see if it's right or wrong. Yeah, to see, that's awfully arrogant. Well, not really, because reality hadn't broken down totally and given itself away when they wrote this. I believed in reality. I believed in the 7-foot man in the cave and all that. We are in the superior position. I wonder what they would write today. Some people go a certain way and their progress stops. Maybe these people that wrote this, Betsy, Mark, Will, or whatever, on the Ship of Fools. That's right, Betsy, Mark, Will. That was Marshall, Will, and Holly. I don't want to confuse that from the Land of the Lost. Maybe their progress stopped and they said, I want to be back on the Ship of Fools. I don't know, but it was way ahead of its time. We are in a position. Of course, I'm analyzing it. It's my opinion, but your comments and emails have influenced thousands and thousands. Have influenced me over 12 to 15 years. So I know, even if I give you my opinion, I know exactly where most of you guys are coming from on this. And we are in the superior position, whether to analyze this or Aristotle or Descartes or whatever, because reality made sense when those people tried to figure out reality. It's shown its cards. We're not smarter. It's given itself away. So it's not arrogant to say, we're going to determine if Aristotle's right or wrong. We're going to determine if Descartes in Philadelphia, it's $50, is right or wrong. It's shown its cards. You don't have to be no genie. You just have to be off the ship of fools. Okay, I guess I did part 1 on this about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Aren't you going to link to it, Matt? Link to it.
No, I'm not going to link to it. Just scroll back in my videos. It's not hard to find it, but there's no reason to go back. We'll just continue where we left off. I underlined this on page 57. In studying the atom, scientists found that when electrons move from orbit to orbit around the nucleus, they do not move through space the way ordinary objects move. Rather, they move instantaneously. That is, they disappear from one place, one orbit, and appear in another. They just jump. This is called a quantum jump. And if that didn't break enough rules of common sense reality, they also discovered that they could not determine exactly where the electrons would appear or where they would jump to. The best they could do was formulate the probabilities, Schrödinger's wave equation, of an electron's new location. Reality as we experience it is constantly being created freshly at every moment. So, I mean, they're ahead of their time. When you see the spooky action at a distance and all this weird stuff, per all the ways science tries to examine and analyze what the atom and the electron is doing, it's just not making any sense, appearing and disappearing. It makes sense to try to bring in consciousness into the equation. How many regular scientists have done that other than through the double slit experiment? Not many. So this already brings up what we talk about now in almost every single video, fake world. I don't understand how the scientists are, quote, missing this, though. See, as you examine the small and the quantum and the very, very small, everything breaks down. Nothing makes sense. It said it right there. The electrons jump around, spooky action at a distance. They acknowledge everything at the smallest levels, as you get smaller, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. As you go out to the very large, the macro, what's the universe expanding into? What's on the other side of it's expanding? The macro doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense to science is what's in between. So you can design a toaster, and everything in between is predictable. Einstein, his calculations on what bodies with mass and gravity do, it's all that in between area. That's the easy area. That's relatively easy to figure out. It's the very small and the very big that to this day, of course, they still haven't figured out. So what do we do? I cry fake world, of course. If you've been looking at this shit for 100 years, the very small and the very large, the micro and the macro, and it just completely breaks down. They just said, the part I just read, the very first thing I read, the electrons just jump around, jump around, jump around, jump up and jump up and jump down. They don't know where it's going to go. Spooky action at a distance, all that stuff. Fake world. Okay, and what does fake world tell you about yourself? This is the first place we went on this channel. The scientists, these eggheads, they still aren't there. They still won't say, what does this tell us about who I really am? They still would rather derive their origins from the Big Bang and Monkey Man. How come the professors, these eggheads down here at St. Joe's, Villanova, University of Pennsylvania, how come they have Pennsylvania? That's what we say in the Northeast. It's not Pennsylvania. It's Pennsylvania. How come they haven't contacted me for a debate? Where's Terrence Howard all this? It is 1 × 1 = 5. I underlined this on page 59. The idea of something being local, like a particle being local, you can point to it, oh, it's here, existing in one place is incorrect. Everything is non-local. Let me repeat that. Everything is non-local. The particles, what make up the quantum and the electrons, etc., the particles are intimately linked on some level that is beyond time and space. Okay, perfect timing. I wanted to talk about this. Here's a quote from the mystic Ramtha, R-E-M-T-H-A. Oh, and people warned me last time we did this. Matt, that Ramtha, watch out. That's New Age stuff. There's people that were really triggered. They don't like this Ramtha. You know what? I don't care who participated with Who the Bleep Do We Know.
We're big enough. We discern enough. We've seen through reality. I'll listen to anyone and I'll say, oh, these 5 parts of what you're saying are total bullshit. But I like what you're saying there. We're big enough we're not going to be fooled. Matt, be careful with Ramtha. As I said many times, if Satan was giving a lecture down here in the Exton Park or whatever, at the Brightside Farm up here, I'd go listen. Why not? Say, Satan, you're wrong about that, but I like what you're saying. We're bigot. We're not going to be fooled by anybody. Are you kidding me? So the triggered people, it's going to be a quote from Ramtha. It's okay. Relax. The quote says, "We stand on the shoulders of billions of genetic lifetimes to give us this perfect genetic body, this perfect genetic brain that took thousands of years to evolve." Oh, no. So that we could have this conversation in the abstract. If we are here to be embodied in the greatest evolutionary machine there ever was, our body and our human brain, then we have deserved the right for what ifs. Well, guys, maybe this is why I underlined it. I'm not too thrilled with this quote from Ramtha. It took billions of genetic lifetimes to give us this perfect genetic body and this perfect genetic brain. What the hell are you? I was just in the hospital. You should have, the cramps were so perfect genetic body. You ever go into the bathroom with yourself in the morning and go, oh my God, that's perfect genetic body. You know, collectively, everybody listening to the words coming out of my mouth, collectively, all the problems and aches and pains we all have right now. My back's still trying to go into spasm. Perfect genetic body. Ramtha, our body does not fit into the natural world. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, I was talking about the mushroom and all the things here, all the hardcore animals that do belong in this reality. We don't belong in this reality. If we were a car, we'd be a used car lemon. This body breaks compared to the birds and the lions and the tigers and the insects. This body breaks down at oh my God, you don't got the electrolyte balance. You think a freaking lion has an electrolyte problem, Ramtha? Are you kidding me? This body doesn't belong in this reality. We don't belong in this reality. It seems like from your quote here, you believe in evolution. Are you kidding me? Look at have you ever seen how many dead birds have you seen in your life just laying around? Like they know, a bird knows when it's going to die. We've all seen a few dead birds. Based on the way things we're told die, we should have seen thousands in our lifetimes, tens of thousands. I don't know, they just go off and die or something. You almost never see a dead bird compared to all the millions and billions of birds that are all over the place. The animals here have a completely different body and structure that's suited to this place, Ramtha. We're not suited to this place. So it's rather obvious we didn't evolve from no monkey man riding no horses. What the hell are you talking about? Sorry. Now this section here is riddled with the I on the back of the dollar bill, the top of the capstone, and it's got watermarked in a lot of sections. And no, first grade truthers, that means they're working with the secret society. It's this Marshall Will and Holly or Betsy Will. No, they're not. Sometimes it just comes through reality. It channels through people, guys. The intentions of these people have always been, to me, it seems very honest. They're trying their best. It's not some attempt to fool us all working with Tavistock. Not at all. We can see through this stuff immediately anymore. But I should show you this page. I won't. Here's a big I, the top of the capstone dollar bill I, all kind of blurred on this page as we move into the next section that says observer. And it says underneath, how interesting, 2004, roughly 12 years before the Mandela effect hit hard. It says, mirror, mirror on the wall, who collapses the very small? Quantum version of an old fairy tale. Very interesting. These symbols are all over the place. It doesn't mean anything, first grade truthers. Relax. Here's a quote on page 66 from Fred Allen Wolf, Ph.D. Sir, because you have the Ph.D., I just can't take you very seriously. Anybody that would put stock into it, in terms of, if you have a Ph.D. like a chemist and you make a product for a company to support your family, I understand that. In terms of understanding reality, just can't take you very seriously if you want to tout your Ph.D. because you're fooled by the university more than you have anything to offer. Sorry. The question, he says, Fred Allen Wolf says, the question might be, can we make a mathematical model of what an observer is doing when an observer is observing and changing reality. Why you want to make a mathematical model of anything, you people? Math breaks down when you really understand how reality works. Math is a part of the trick of this reality. Continues. So far, making a mathematical model of collapsing the wave function, I'm just extrapolating what he said, making a mathematical model of the consciousness affecting reality, that's eluded us. Well, yeah, any mathematical model that we use that brings in observation seems to introduce discontinuities in the mathematics. Well, yeah, the observer has been left out of the equation of physics for a simple reason. It's easier to do things that way. Well, that's very accurate. The eggheads that are always trying to put reality into a mathematical model, like Stephen Hawking. Are you kidding me? You think at the quantum level or at the macro level it cares one bit about your maths? Overseas in Europe they say maths. What the hell's that? It's maths. Reality doesn't care about fitting into your 0 through 1, 10, base 10 math system. They're always trying to... Of course there's not going to be an equation that determines how consciousness affects reality. Why did I even read this? This is a useless quote. Okay, this heading in this section really describes or encapsulates what this book and movie is all about. How much does the observer affect the observed? Consciousness, of course, affecting reality, and bringing in, whenever appropriate here, quantum physics and those principles. Altering your everyday life. A lot of the shiny, happy people in this book creating your own reality. There's truth to that. As I told you, I'm not one of those people. Maybe I'm more of a glass half empty guy and I need to improve. But I don't shiny, happy people jumping out of bed. I'm going to create my own reality. I'm not there. I'm sorry. I know my thoughts affect it somehow. We know our thoughts affect reality, as does the thoughts of the collective and the masses. The collective affects it. That's why the Not Milk, through its media and its mind control, through its social media and the internet, it moves the collective consciousness to shape reality. There's no question that that's true. But in terms of go out there and shape your own reality, make your own world, Matt, I don't think I'll ever be one of these shiny, happy people trying to create their own reality. I can't, I'm not one of these jump out of bed people. A lot of the people in here are, and I wish I was more like them. They're better off than me, having that belief and understanding that their conscious thoughts, even moment to moment, create reality. I wish I was more like that. I know why I underline this. And Mark, Betsy, and Will, it's still true today, 20 years after you wrote this. Science has no clue regarding consciousness. Here's what they wrote. Consciousness is fundamental to all that we do, art, science, relationships. Yeah, we know. Yeah, Dad, you told us. Consciousness is constant in our lives. Yeah. Yet science has done very little to examine it deeply, consciousness. Over a 400-year span, science has made immense progress in comprehending the physical universe, blah, blah, blah. But consciousness to scientists remains an intellectual black hole. Yeah, many scientists in physics as well as psychology who are still wedded to the materialist Newtonian paradigm dismiss consciousness as a product of brain functioning. The word they most often use is epiphenomenon, which means essentially a side effect or byproduct. Your consciousness, anybody listening to me right now, your consciousness is a side effect of what came before, like an amoeba crawled out of a pool of goo or something. Your consciousness is a side effect of things just coming together so one body could hump on the other and reproduce. Are you kidding me? It goes back to the Kabbalion, you idiots. All is mind. Consciousness came first. These scientists are absolute idiots. Yet I'm the one that can't afford a cup of coffee, and they're getting whacked off in a coat closet making $1.2 million a year. Everything here's backwards. Matt, that's what you want. Yeah, you're right. You want to be an outcast in this reality. If you fit in this reality with keys to the city and big jobs and rewards, then you're not doing too well. You want to struggle in this place. Absolutely. Essentially, it doesn't say that in the book. That's what Matt's saying. Essentially, this says the, quote, me sense of you is oops an accident of evolution. And Mark, Betsy, Will, and Holly, and Marshall, who wrote this in 2004, the scientists of today haven't come any farther. Your consciousness is a byproduct of some amino acid crawling out of a pool of goo. Continuing to read a few paragraphs later, but probably the most important reason that science has no clue on consciousness, and it's what they called it the black hole in terms of how it's derived, is that consciousness doesn't fit in the Newtonian paradigm. Of course it doesn't. It's not made out of measurable stuff. You can't put a meter on consciousness. And most scientists remain immersed in the worldviews split apart hundreds of years ago by Descartes. There he is, my boy. That's the book I was reading in the hospital. Descartes. We're going to get to him and his philosopher stuff in just a week or two. The intangible or non-physical or spiritual are forever separate from the physical. And the scientists, if you can't put it on a damn measuring device, they don't understand. I can't measure it. I don't know where do I put this electrode if it can't be measured. And they're the ones that make the big money. Those idiots. Therefore, to explain consciousness, they have only a brain-based phenomenon of chemistry and neural circuits. And in that paradigm, scientists have gone so far as to call consciousness an anomaly. And these top neuroscientists and neurosurgeons, they're still looking for consciousness inside the brain. That's like looking for the play-by-play announcer for the baseball game inside the old radio. What a bunch of morons.
Well, Matt, you're good at ragging on the university professors, but what do you think it is? You tell me, Mr. Genius,
Mr. Wizard. You tell me where consciousness... Well, I may be wrong, but I'm not lifting up the hood of an 87 Buick and expecting a damn raccoon in there on a bicycle. That's what they're doing. I might be wrong. To me, the brain is simply like a walkie-talkie, an interface. So a part of it, you've ever heard me say this before? So a part of us that perhaps is not here, like somebody playing a video game, or a part of spirit, or a part that was broken off, or whatever you think higher self is, it interfaces spirit, or a part of us, or I believe that's not here, interfaces with this material plane through soul and through the brain like a walkie-talkie, as a receiving device, a sending receiving device. That doesn't mean it's not a machine in some way that doesn't help create speech and help hold memories, but it doesn't do it exclusively on its own. The scientists look at the brain as if it stands alone, that there is no other factors, just because things may be outside of their scientific perception. Soul, spirit, different dimensions. They just don't even take it into account. They keep looking in the same closet you looked in that closet in 1956. There's no broom in there. Stop opening the door and looking in the closet for the same old thing.
Did you get anywhere this year? No. Did you get anywhere this year? I still have my tenure though, right? Yeah. I'm still going to get whacked off in the broom closet. Yeah. Do I get my $100,000 bonus on my trip to Tahiti? Did you write books for Harvard? Yeah, then you do. These idiots, they keep, who's giving them applause and keys to the city when they're accomplishing regarding understanding consciousness? Nothing. They should be made homeless.
Page 87. Simply stated, the scientific method is this. Take a theory or come up with a theory, devise an experiment that tests that theory in a way that all extraneous influences are eliminated, run the experiment, and if the theory is contradicted, look for a new theory. Let's face it, in this day and age, we look first to science to tell us answers about reality. That's exactly right, Will, Betsy, and Mark. I mean, how pathetic is that? People, 99% look to science to tell us about reality. When you could look anywhere but science. Science is the most fooled about reality. Science and their experiments, they are taking aspects of the trick itself, and trying to turn that into real answers about reality when it's literally they're tapping into the root of the trick. They are the most fooled. There is no doubt about this, in my opinion. 100%. Richard Feynman, if it disagrees with our experiments, then it's wrong. No, what agrees with your experiments is the root of the reality trick out to fool all humans. If anybody's new, what do I mean by that? To me, anything that comes from the outer ring of reality, of course, what we call the screen, the outer ring, the part that's furthest from your heart center reality bubble, not milk, plumber's ass crack, asshole dark. Of course, we know that's all a trick. That's 100% a trick. But many times in our analysis, the natural world gets a pass. Nature, the game board, we've talked about being separate from the screen and the outer ring, the asshole dark, etc. And in many ways, they are separate, but many aspects of the natural world could still be part of the trick. For example, when a scientist beams its telescopes or its radio telescopes or whatever at the heavens, and they think they've determined or they found a quasar or a pulsar or whatever happens up there. Well, that's the natural world. That has to be real. Really? Why? Why can't everything out there be part of the trick? Science will never, ever put that on the table. And just the fact that they don't even consider that. I mean, I'm sorry, Matt, you can't speak for them, really? Is that how their scientific books about quasars and pulsars and events that happen in deep space and the formulation of nebulas and all, is that how their books start? That I'd like to just, the preface here, the 400 pages that follow are based on our empirical experiments, but I just want to note that it might be part of a reality trick. I don't think their books start that way, just me. I think they'd lose their tenure. I think they'd lose those after dinner parties. That's not how their books start. They don't even keep that on the table. And it's not just the heavens. There's many parts of the natural world, of course, that may be part of the reality trick. No matter what you just disagreed with regarding what I presented, we do agree at some fundamental level that there's a trick being played here. I mean, even if you don't go as far as I do, or you wouldn't be here, of course. This whole reality to me is a trick, but you might not go as far as I do. And then, well, what does that tell you about reality itself? What does that tell you about yourself? A reality that's intent at every level, even in science, in terms of playing a trick on those here, is not a real world. No world that came from a big bang and from deep nebulae or nebulas that couldn't do that. It's a conscious trick. It's a deceptive it's the trickster. Okay, that's not a real world. And again, the best news of all time, you trying to navigate a trick inside a world that's not very real tells you a lot about yourself. And again, one last time, because it's so important to the prison planet people and the soul trap people, why is it working so hard to formulate its trick? And now we see the trick is in science. It's potentially in many parts of the natural world. The trick in terms of fooling a human as to what the experience that it's going through and to fool the human into believing it's something that it's not. Why is it working so hard here every day if it has us so securely at death with its archonic tricks? That's, again, something that's never addressed by the people that put forth the soul trap. Soul trap so rock solid, was it working so hard here for? I've said that 1,000 times, the old guard's saying right now. But it's so important. It's one of the, if you believe it, it's one of the most important things ever said. It can't be said enough. Okay, this whole section on page 92, I'm not going to read it, but I want to talk about it. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time. We've all heard of this, the Dr. Emoto experiments, where there are water crystals or ice crystals, and people's, they really try to get in their mind that they hate these crystals, and you know what happens. They, under a microscope, they turn ugly and deformed, and then over here say, "Monkey love you, monkey want a hug, you monkey love these crystals here." These people love the crystals, and and it's very similar to the rice experiment, hate. But the point is, we've all heard this, right? This is so monumental and impactful. The Dr. Emoto experiment keeps coming up over and over and over. We've all heard this. Well, how come it hasn't been replicated 1,000 times over? Is it simply like, Matt, this proves that consciousness affects reality, so Not Milk will never allow these experiments again? Not Milk will never allow it to happen at Harvard or even the University of Indiana or at Carnegie Mellon or whatever. But you just never, is Not Milk so afraid of this that maybe others other than the rice experiment where you have 3 rice in 3 jars, and you hate this rice and you try to give it, and then they try to love this rice and neutral on this, and you see the effect on the rice. And, a lot of people online have done that, but the Dr. Emoto experiments where you need a more sophisticated microscope, et cetera, in crystals or water, everybody just keeps talking about Dr. Emoto. Well, where are if it's real, it's so monumental, how come it hasn't been done 1,000 times over, or has it? And the not-nilk is literally, in this case, afraid of it and won't allow it to get out. Or people are so much on the ship of fools, so much on the download, somebody might be crying out, we'll bring this back, rising up out of their bathtub wanting to throw a rubber ducky at me, saying, Matt, if you're all these scientists at universities, even if it's just some little university down the road, they're all on the ship of fools. They're the palace guard when all is said and done. They're not going to want to do an experiment that breaks reality. That's why this Dr. Emoto stuff has never been replicated. Well, if the Dr. Emoto stuff, to me, broke reality, you can see the effect of consciousness on crystals. Why is it as popular as it is? I mean, maybe it made its way into the What the Bleep Do We Know book, but we all had heard about the Dr. Emoto experiments 50 times before this book or whatever. It's just weird. It's just weird. I'm from Holland. Isn't that weird? It's weird why... I don't have no sophisticated microscope. If you do, let's do our own Dr. Emoto experiments. It's the next level up from the rice experiments. Okay, this is interesting. At least they don't ignore this. Many people that are, pushing for that create my own reality, they don't like these sorts of challenging questions. At least the book, What the Bleep Do We Know, lists them out. For example, does a starving child create their own reality? You see some starving child on television, or, the Save the Children Fund or something. They're creating their own reality. It's guys, I don't go as far as when people say I'm going to create my own reality. I'm not even in the middle. I'm more little. I believe that consciousness, of course, helps shape reality. We know that just by the actions of the not-nilk itself. But when you ask questions like this, it does kind of break down a bit. So the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Here, if I create my reality and you create your reality, and they're different, completely different realities, Frank, what then? How do they mix with each other if we're all creating on our own? I would never create this blank, fill in the blank. I would never create this trauma. Or, Matt, did you create the cramps and the blood clotting? I would never do that. So how do you reconcile that? What about all the synchronicities and coincidence around us? Does a starving child create their own reality? What about natural disasters? Collectively, people create a Hurricane Irma. These are real. These are very, very difficult for the shiny, happy people that jump out of bed and say, I'm going to create my own reality today. How do you reconcile this stuff? I don't know. I'm in the middle. There's no doubt that individual consciousness and collective consciousness influences reality. No doubt about it. 100%. How much? Is it 1-to-1? How much? I don't know. We know that to be a fact simply by the degree by which the not-nilk tries to work us over, to shape our perceptions, and to shape learned helplessness, and to get us to believe certain things about ourselves and about how the world works. It works over time. If our consciousness didn't influence, and I'll just leave it there because I can't answer these questions that I just listed out, but it's definitely an influence, if not much more. Of course, many of you would say it's 1-to-1. There is. Even you, Matt, have suggested there is no physical reality without consciousness, and I have. But I still can't reconcile these questions like, does a starving child create their own reality in starvation? Well, no. So it doesn't, we'll never have the exact answers to these difficult questions. To me, it's enough to know that individual and collective consciousness does affect reality. Whether it's, I might put it on a scale of 1 out of 10 and you put it at 10 out of 10. If I am there, and that means the world isn't very real. That's where I always want to go. That's the only thing I care about. Saying this world isn't very real, best news of all time, which means I'm larger in it. I'm having an experience in it, and I'm a timeless being that's bigger and not derived solely from this place or from a big bang. That's all I care about, getting to that point. Once I get there, then I can just put my feet up. I existed before birth. I'll exist after death. We don't have to figure everything out here. We don't have to know exactly how consciousness influences reality or if it's a 1 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. Once you get to the level, all I'm interested is, oh, okay, I'm at level 2. That's fake world. And then I can put my feet up and say, okay, let's just enjoy the experience. Fake world. We're low beings here. We're not ever going to know every bit of what we will know or what we knew before we came in. So just relax. It's that simple. Once I get to the fake world level, I don't really even care to know anymore. We've never really put it in these simple terms, but it's everything here is so simple when you break it down to its fundamental or root level. Science comes at everything as if the world is real. It approaches everything as if it is, and that's not a great way of putting it. What does that mean? As if the world, but you know what I mean. Science comes at everything, tackles everything as if the world is real. If science would just do the opposite, tackle everything as if the world isn't very real, which means the rules don't always have to make sense. And whatever it may be, now everything would change if science looked at every problem, every single natural phenomenon, as if the world wasn't very real. Now, the ship of fools and the ship that the Not Milk has placed all these scientists on and has worked them over from birth and has mind controlled them and has fooled them, they are square on the ship of fools. The ship of fools philosophy is Big Bang, Darwin, everything is real, scientific explanation, rules, science rules. The science will win. Hey, you asshole on a bike, do you get your booster? Hey, oh, yeah, good. Are you going for boosters? The science will win. There's a new variant now, but the science will win. Those types of jerks, that they come at it. Think about how the world would be different if every single scientist said, you know what? I'm going to tackle the same problem. I'm going to do what I've been doing, but I'm going to come at it from 180 degrees. That the world's not very real. Oh, I bet there'd be a big change in about 6 months. Just sitting here quietly for a few minutes with more disdain coming up for these scientists, and it's just so pathetic, guys. I don't know how to get this across, but see, the scientists, no matter what their field of expertise is, cosmology, I almost said cosmetology, that's makeup and stuff, cosmology, the cosmos, astrophysicists, whatever it may be, they have to accept quantum physics at this point, because it's not just theory anymore and Schrodinger's dead cat in a box and all that. It's I don't know how corporations, for example, are using quantum physics to make the next big screen TV. But I know it's quantum physics to a degree has become mainstream for products and services. I don't quite understand it, but all of science has to accept it. But they still will conduct their experiments when the very root of what they're forced to accept, quantum physics, says that the world out there is not being derived from out there. Maybe you're only influencing a small part, but the world out there is not completely independent from consciousness. And still they'll conduct their experiments on their quasars or their pulsars. And well, how do you know you don't want to find a pulsar? And the reality simply just shows you a pulsar. I mean, they don't even factor it in. It's incredible to me. So if the Ellie Arroways at the Arecibo in Contact and those types of people that are studying the heavens, you'd say to them, do you believe in quantum physics? Oh, sure, double slit. And they're believers in it. And say, but when you found that quasar last night with Father Joss, whatever, you think you found it. Well, how come if you believe in quantum physics, then that reality could be showing you what you expect to find. The way truth researchers expect to find conspiracy and to have and the reality as the conspiracy generation machine shows it to them, throws it at them like Lucy in the Chocolate Factory. If I call reality a conspiracy generation machine, if you're interested in Tartaria, guess what you're going to find? Tons of stuff on Tartaria. If you're interested on Mudflood, guess what you're going to find? It will show you, of course. Nobody ever went to the library all eager to investigate the new conspiracy that they're so excited about, and then we've done this before, found nothing. Yeah, you're home early. Why are you home early? Well, there was nothing. I thought it'd be I thought there'd be tons on this conspiracy. There was the library, the internet had nothing on it. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Take a nap. That never happened. So doesn't that tell you something about reality itself? First, the first through fifth grade truthers should learn It's showing you what you expect to find. But the scientists, the ones that get paid the big money, they're supposed to have the high IQs or whatever, then they should at least keep this on the table. Say, well, the experiment, the data here from the Arecibo, where Ellie Arroway snuck in Father Joss, shows we have a new quasar we found, or the Arecibo, whatever. Maybe reality just showed you what you expected to find. You can't go fly around up there and go out there and see if there's anything really there. None of them keep this on the table. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying it's so ignorant not to at least keep it on the table while accepting the principles of quantum physics at the same time. How pathetic. Frank, you'll love this part. Who is creating what? Dr. Wolf continues, quote, "One of the things that comes up about creating realities is what happens when there are two people each creating a different reality. What goes on there? Well, the first thing to realize is that the idea that you create your own reality, if by you mean that egotistic person that you think is running your show creates your reality, it's probably wrong. It's probably not that you that's creating the reality at all," says Amit Goswami. Reading ahead a few pages, it does just seem to gloss over the most important question. At least it acknowledges the question. Well, if I'm creating my own reality and the person sitting next to me is, well, how's that work? Aren't we creating differently? Why do we have almost everything in our conjoined reality bubbles the same? It doesn't address that. It threw the question out. You heard me read it. Then it just goes on like it never asked the question. In terms about creating the reality, it does address this, which is somewhat interesting. It's saying, well, everybody thinks it's the me that's talking, the frontal lobes of the brain that thinks in English, that speaks in English, that the ego dominates. It goes on to say, in a vague sense, the book says that that's not really the part of you that creates reality. If that was, then you could just say, I want a mansion and I want this and that and I want a new Porsche and I want a Ferrari, and it wouldn't obviously that's not the case. It's saying it doesn't tell you exactly how to get in touch with the part that may be creating reality, but it does hint that there are other parts of you, and don't think it's just the ego and the part that thinks and speaks in English. And this to me, kind of makes sense. I mean, there's people listening to this who will say, Matt, you were just in the hospital and you did create that. You've had certain trauma or certain interactions with certain family members that have been stressful, and you did, in a way, create that, but not the thinking part, that you would never actively or consciously, in the part that thinks and speaks in English, create that for yourself, but you did create that. The other part of you, I kind of understand. I don't expect them to get real specific on the part of you that creates reality, but there's something to that. There is something to it. Who we are, fundamental rule of this reality is who we are is far more than just the part that has ego dominating, that thinks in English or whatever language you speak. So I kind of like what's being said here overall, although it just kind of glosses over it and moves on. The book doesn't explain in any way, well, how do you get in touch or isolate the part that may influence or create reality? Unfortunately, it doesn't go there, but hey, that would be asking a lot, wouldn't it? Okay, this section addresses a little of it. It reads, when something occurs in their life that they absolutely positively would never ever create for themselves, I would never do that. I would never create this if I create my own reality. That's true. The personality, never would. But as all spiritual traditions maintain, there's more than one you. This concept can be described in different ways, goes by many labels. Here they're talking about it as two sides of the coin, but I'm sure they would keep on the table there could be many more parts to you. But for example, what is the real you? Is it ego versus true self? Or put differently, personality, ego versus divinity, Son of Man, Son of God, mortal body, immortal soul. But in essence, it says there are different levels from which you are creating. And the goal of enlightenment is to erase this fragmentation of self and create from one source. Okay, let me read that again. And the goal of enlightenment is to erase this fragmentation of self and to create from one source, which I guess is why, quote, who am I works. It's to expand our consciousness until we are conscious of all our creations. Well, there's no doubt that the not milk wants us believing, most of us believing, all of us believing that ego, the part that thinks in English, the part that wants the new sports car, to believe that that's all we are. And it is at least a start to consider that's just a portion of who we are. So this is sort of answering it. It's saying, how do you combine the collective you? The collective you creates not just the part that pops up in English and says, I want a new car. And I'm going to interject here. I don't know if it says it in the book. I don't think it does. But the reason you just don't get the materialistic things, if I create my reality, I want this, because the more powerful part of you doesn't care about a new car. The other parts of you, or the divine nature of you, doesn't care about those things that the ego would want, for example. And just sitting here for a minute thinking, it might work the other way too. The higher self, or the divine nature in us, or the part that's not here, regarding, say, my hospital stay, may say, we've never had a physical trauma, not even anywhere near life-threatening. We need to experience this. It might have created that. It may have needed that. Of course, the selfish Matt that talks in English, but I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. But that it still may have been manifested for a variety of different reasons, for reasons that my thinking brain can't comprehend. Just sitting here for another minute, the purpose of the brain may be to isolate ego consciousness from the other aspects of us, and to isolate the frontal lobes, the part that speaks in English, the part that wants the new car, or almost to put it into prison, maybe. Is it an isolation chamber? I don't know. It still can let through the other parts of who we are into this reality. I'm not sure. I just wanted to throw that out. Continuing to read and accepting that I create blank in my reality. Accepting it is an amazing tool for that expansion. For if it's true, then every time you reject your part in creating reality, you're rejecting or denying a part of yourself. Thus, the fragmentation continues. In fact, according to the enlightened, what does that mean? The spirit half of you is creating these realities for the sole purpose of becoming whole. There are things you must experience to grow that might not be your ego or your personality's first choice. Yeah, kind of like the hospital stay that I just kind of threw out. They call it karma. Oh, no. They call it karma. We did create at some time in the past, whether recent or remote, all the conditions that we are faced with in this life. Oh, come on. Bull crap. Let me just finish reading. It's not much longer. But how do all the karmas of all the people in the world interact? How does it all fit together? How do those happy and unhappy coincidences occur that are often the harbingers of a new world? Who is running the computer that can keep all of this straight for around 6 billion humans? Well, throw out the last part, guys. All of this can be true without karma. I don't want to get into it right now. I don't buy it. Tony didn't buy it. It's a great tool for keeping you trapped and in a box. We'll talk about it some other time. Here's a quote from Ramtha that I think is pretty accurate. Everything in your life is frequency, specific to who you are. So if you want to know who you are, just look around. The universe is always serving up the answer. The trouble is the hidden, repressed parts of us are also reflected, and we repress them because we don't like them. It's those reflections that make us say, I would never create that. And it's that which keeps getting reflected back over and over until we understand it. Sitting here for a minute thinking about that quote, I need to add this. We have to be very careful when considering a quote like that, if we believe it. Oh, look around. The universe will reflect who you are. Make sure you're not applying the not milk standards of success. That's not what it's all about. Oh, the universe is going to reflect, per that Ramtha quote, who I am. And we all agree that there's some truth to that. But if you're sitting in a very poor apartment with a hole in the wall and rats, and that doesn't matter. Don't apply not milk standards of success. Like, how many people have the tendency, because of the wealth around them, that think that that's the reality reflection? That's what the not milk would want. That doesn't matter one bit. Reflection of ourselves, how happy or satisfied are you with the way you are living your life now versus 10 years ago? Are you evolving into someone or have evolved into someone your 22-year-old self or your 25-year-old self wouldn't even recognize? That's a good thing. What's reflecting back certain people, becoming a caring part of your life? It doesn't matter if the walls aren't painted or the material things. That's our first tendency. That's where the not milk wants us to think about. Absolutely not. Well, guys, I thought I would finish the What the Bleep Do We Know book, but I should have known better. I'm only about halfway through. There's so much here to talk about and analyze and discuss. I don't know if I'll continue tomorrow, Saturday. We'll do a different form of Midnight Reality. I might save it for a week or two, just to try to keep these videos as varied, the themes and topics as varied and as random as possible. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you tomorrow on Saturday.